a national swindler. Malaysia was once scammed by this man, Jho Low, who stole a total of $4.5 billion from the country. If you convert that to Thai baht, it's about 153 billion baht. That's because Malaysia's former Prime Minister, Najib Razak, trusted Jho Low to manage the 1MDB fund all by himself. But why was that? Was it because Jho Low looked rich? Because he bought luxury goods for his own wife? Because he gave expensive gifts to celebrities? Because he was friends with Hollywood stars? Or maybe because he was friends with Arab royalty? Or was it just because he seemed wealthy? So he seemed really trustworthy, right? But the sad truth is, Jho Low wasn't actually that rich at all. You can support the info on Jho Low's heavenly, next-level fake riches by scanning this QR code, or just hit subscribe for us. Because in this video, I'm gonna tell you how someone who looked super rich and spent like crazy, well, honestly, he didn't actually have to be that rich, you know? For someone to steal $4.5 billion from a country, what kind of person do they have to be? What kind of background do they come from? I'll tell you all about it. Jho Low was actually born into a wealthy family in Malaysia on Penang Island. And in 1998, since his dad was already rich, he sent his son to a famous boarding school called Harrow in England. This school is known for having a ton of billionaires. People from all over the world come to study there. Jho Low always said that his time at Harrow was a crucial period in his life because it was when he could build the foundation for his future connections. Like I mentioned, Jho Low's family was rich, but it was millionaire level rich. Let's call it $1 million rich. But the people at Harrow were billionaire level rich, like royalty or oil tycoons. So Jho Low tried to befriend the wealthiest kids in his class and acted like he was just as rich as they were. He would invite his super rich friends from Harrow to visit his home in Malaysia, and then Jho Low would borrow a yacht from one of those really wealthy families, right? He even went so far as to swap out all the family photos on the yacht and replace them with pictures of his own family, just to make it look like the yacht belonged to him. Jho Low also liked to take charge of things to make his friends like him. There was one time when he volunteered to rent out a club so he could throw a party for his underage friends, claiming that he could make it happen. He claimed to be a member of the Brunei royal family and even managed to get an official-looking letter from the embassy, complete with a formal letterhead. He then took that letter to the nightclub and told them he was a member of the Brunei royal family who wanted to rent out the club for the night. So the nightclub had to allow it, letting underage students from Harrow come in and party at this super exclusive club. Honestly, Jho Low did get money from his parents, but it wasn't nearly enough to cover the cost of these extravagant parties or to pay for the nightclub rentals. Of course, he couldn't actually afford all that. What Jho Low did was just put down a deposit. Then, after the party was over, he'd go back to the nightclub and try to negotiate. Since he claimed to be a member of the Brunei royal family, he'd ask for a huge discount and request to extend the payment deadline as long as possible. The nightclub knew what Jho was up to, but the people at the party had no idea. They all thought Jho Low was a real billionaire. And this was one of the first lessons Jho learned, that projecting power and prestige can open any door. After Jho Low graduated from Harrow, he went on to Wharton. There, he took on the role of writing for the university newspaper, the Wharton Journal. But what Jho actually did was copy articles from the Wall Street Journal without giving any credit, telling everyone that these were pieces he wrote himself. He wanted people to believe he was knowledgeable about finance and an expert stock picker. Basically, he was building his personal brand to look like he had real financial skills. He made himself seem successful. He boosted his image even more by renting luxury cars to drive around campus and spreading rumors that he was actually a Malaysian prince. He threw extravagant birthday parties, using the same old trick of hosting lavish events so he could befriend the wealthiest students at the university. And believe it or not, building these connections, whether it was hanging out with super rich students or influential people, was the key to his success. He managed to pull off one of the biggest frauds in history. For Jho Low, the key to his success wasn't about know-how or what he knew. It was about know-who. It was all about who you know, and he was willing to lie about himself, to exaggerate how much money he had, just to connect with the right people who could serve as stepping stones to get him where he wanted to go. And eventually, Jho Low made friends with some pretty influential people from the Middle East. This all started with the group of friends he met at university. So he asked this friend to show him around the Middle East, and of course, his friend agreed. While Jho Low was touring the Middle East, he met several of the region's wealthiest families, and even some princes. What Jho Low was especially interested in during these conversations was learning about the systems in place, and more importantly, who controlled the country's money. And sure enough, Jho Low managed to get acquainted with some top executives. Abu Dhabi's wealth fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund, is a massive fund controlled by the government. Sovereign wealth funds are typically used by countries that rely heavily on a single resource. For example, in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi mainly depends on oil, right? So they use a sovereign wealth fund to take the money earned from oil sales and invest it in other assets. Jho Low discovered a weakness in these sovereign wealth funds. They're enormous, with huge amounts of money. Most of it is actually in cash, too. There's not much oversight, and it's not all that transparent. So if you ask whether Jho Low got everything he wanted, after he got back from his Middle East tour, he went ahead and set up a company called Winton Group. This company was established to act as a broker, inviting investors from the Middle East to invest in Malaysia. He even set up a fancy office in the Petronas Towers. And of course, he didn't use his own money to build it, he took out loans to do it. Not that borrowing money is wrong, but still, it was all borrowed. Also, when Jho Low was studying at Harrow, he had a close friend named Riz. Riz is the son of Najib Razak, who at the time was the deputy prime minister of Malaysia. Jho Low knew that Malaysia was planning to build a financial hub and was looking for investors, big money investors. So he used his Winton Group, which was a brokerage firm, to seek out investors from the Middle East to invest in Malaysia's financial hub. And he actually succeeded. He managed to bring in investors. Jho Low was smart. He gave all the credit for bringing in those investors to Najib Razak, who was still the deputy prime minister at the time. This made Najib Razak extremely popular and helped him win the 2009 election, becoming the prime minister of Malaysia. And once Najib became prime minister, Jho Low was only 27 years old at the time, but he continued to cozy up to Najib's family by buying them jewelry. He bought expensive jewelry for Najib's wife, paid for Najib's daughter's university tuition, and even attended her graduation ceremony. Once Jho Low had gained Najib Razak's trust, he didn't waste any time. He persuaded Najib Razak, who was now prime minister, to set up a sovereign wealth fund for Malaysia, modeled after those in the Middle East. That's how 1MDB was created. When 1MDB was introduced to the public, it was presented as a fund established to develop the country's economy. The fund was supposed to focus on green energy, tourism, and creating high-quality jobs for all Malaysians. Of course, Najib Razak held the position of chairman of the fund, while Jho Low was officially just an advisor. But in reality, Jho Low controlled all the money in the 1MDB fund. Within just a few months, Jho Low received his first proposal for 1MDB to invest. He got an offer to organize a joint venture with a Middle Eastern oil company called Saudi. The plan was for 1MDB to invest $1 billion in this oil project. Let me emphasize, a project worth $1 billion. But since Jho Low controlled all the money in 1MDB, he transferred $300 million to Saudi, and the rest? $700 million were transferred to a company called Goodstar Limited. Later on, we actually found out that Goodstar Limited was a shell company, which means a company that exists only on paper just to receive money, owned by Jho Low. So Jho Low transferred $700 million into a shell company that he himself owned, basically putting the money straight into his own pocket, clear as day. And you might ask, hey, didn't anyone notice? Didn't anyone raise any alarms? Like, what kind of transaction is this? Yes, there were, because after Jho Low transferred $700 million to himself, right? That means he had enough money to make every single official, everyone, stay completely silent. And once Jho got that $700 million, right, which was stolen money, he spent it super extravagantly. He spent it in the most over-the-top way a human possibly could. Normally, when people are rich, they're rich in assets, but Jho Low was rich in cash, rich in liquidity. He bought luxury cars, yachts, private jets, mansions. He even bought hotels. There were even reports that Jho Low would lose millions of dollars playing poker in casinos, just chilling, totally unfazed. And Jho Low also managed to He got to date and hang out with Hollywood celebrities. He dated Paris Hilton. She was like his dream girl. He became friends with Leonardo DiCaprio. He even partied with Britney Spears. Psy, the guy from Gangnam Style, once performed for him. He even bought a white Ferrari for Kim Kardashian as a wedding gift. And most importantly, he dated Miranda Kerr, the Victoria's Secret angel. Seriously, how rich do you have to be to throw such insane parties? There was one year when Jho, he wanted to do 2 countdowns, you know? First, he did the countdown in Sydney, Australia. Then he hopped on a private jet and flew to Las Vegas to do another countdown. And the more photos there were of him with celebrities and influential people, the more credible and wealthy he seemed. But here's the thing. The $700 million that Jho Low embezzled wasn't just squandered on his lavish parties and extravagant lifestyle. It was also funneled into campaign funds for Najib Razak, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia. Actually, Jho Low once tried to do legitimate business. There was a time when he wanted to invest in a Hollywood movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese. They had already finished making The Wolf of Wall Street, and Jho Low even got a thank you credit at the end of the film. But there's something I find funny about all this. Do you know what it is? The whole time, no one ever came out and said that Jho Low's spending was weird, until finally someone did. And trust me, it didn't disappoint. That person was Jordan Belfort, the real-life figure the movie The Wolf of Wall Street is based on. Jordan Belfort was actually one of the people who attended Jho Low's parties, and he saw firsthand how extravagantly Jho Low spent money at those events. Jordan Belfort said he didn't trust the way Jho Low handled his money at all. He even made a comment saying, "You wouldn't spend money you actually worked for like this. If you spend it like this, it must be money you stole, plain and simple." And so, the $700 million that Jho Low had transferred into his own account was starting to run out. But the way he lived made him want more and more money. This time, he planned to go even bigger, so he thought about raising funds through 1MDB again. He figured he'd say the money was for building a power plant. But the thing is, 1MDB didn't have a credit rating, so Jho Low had to seek help from a global financial institution, Goldman Sachs, so that 1MDB could issue bonds. In seeking cooperation from Goldman Sachs, Jho Low met with Tim Leissner, the head of Goldman Sachs Asia division. He was the one who arranged for Goldman Sachs's global financial credibility to be paired with 1MDB and the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Abu Dhabi. This particular sovereign wealth fund had assets totaling up to $7 billion. So this gave them extremely strong credit. Then in 2012, Malaysia's 1MDB fund was able to issue bonds worth as much as $3.5 billion through Goldman Sachs. And Jho Low used the exact same trick again. Out of the $3.5 billion raised, he transferred $1.4 billion to his own shell company. Then in 2013, 1MDB, they issued more bonds, this time worth $3 billion, once again through Goldman Sachs. Just like before, Jho Low pocketed a portion of the money. The power plants promised to the Malaysian people, they were just imaginary. How could someone transfer billions from a national fund like 1MDB without anyone checking? First, former Prime Minister Najib Razak trusted Jho Low so much he never questioned him. Second, those bonds were issued by Goldman Sachs, which made everything look legitimate and above board. Third, they were pretty clever about it. The companies they transferred the money to, the shell companies, were intentionally named to closely resemble real investment funds. For example, everyone knows the fund BlackRock, right? Well, the shell company they transferred money to was called BlackRock Community Global Limited, which sounds very similar. That way, when people were checking, it was easy for them to just glance over it and not notice anything suspicious. And then the next point is that once the money was transferred, they kept transferring it again and again, over and over. This made it look like it was a real investment, not just money being parked somewhere. But the key point is that these transactions were supposed to be government-to-government deals. Normally, these kinds of transactions are subject to less scrutiny. They're checked less strictly than private-to-private transactions because they're already less transparent. So, all in all, the money that Jho Low stole from 1MDB is estimated to be as much as $4.5 billion, which in Thai currency is about 153 billion baht. That's a huge amount. But even though Jho Low had tons of money to keep government officials quiet, the damage that was done couldn't silence the real victims, the people. The public started asking questions, like why they weren't getting what 1MDB had promised, all those development projects and such. And in 2015, hundreds of thousands of Malaysians took to the streets to protest, demanding that Najib Razak step down from his position because he was involved in the scandal. But at that time, Najib didn't resign. It wasn't until he suffered a defeat and was actually voted out. His party lost for the first time in 60 years. This was the first major change in Malaysia's history, showing just how angry the people were about this corruption. Not long after, the police raided Najib Razak's house and found assets worth up to $274 million, including designer handbags, luxury jewelry, and branded watches. There were all sorts of things, along with another $28 million in cash. It was clear that Najib had accepted bribes and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. As for Jho Low, the mastermind, he completely disappeared. He's still missing to this day. In the end, the people who suffered the most from all this were the Malaysian citizens, who have to bear the burden of the massive debt left behind. 1MDB was the fund that was originally promoted to the public as a fund meant to develop the country and improve the lives of its people. But in the end, it turned into a project that betrayed the public's finances on a massive scale. The reason I'm sharing this story of fraud is simply to point out that even a nation's financial system can be easily manipulated, right? And it seems like the real victims, the people, always end up getting nothing back in return.